The anime begins with a group of thugs trying to abuse these two girls. The short-haired girl asks them to stop since they don't know who they're messing with. But before they can do anything, an intimidating knight appears and effortlessly defeats several of them with a single slash. His name is Ark, and he interfered because he was disgusted by their behavior. However, this story doesn't start there. It begins when Ark wakes up confused, realizing he doesn't belong to this place, and he definitely shouldn't look like that. Nevertheless, he recognizes the equipment he's wearing, a sturdy set of armor resistant to both light and fire, the legendary holy armor of Belinus, complete with a mana-regenerating cape, the sacred shield of Tutates, and let's not forget about his lightning-fast sword, the holy sword Kalidbal. Alright, it's clear now, this is his in-game character, Ark. Apparently, he fell asleep playing the game the night before, and though he finds it hard to believe, he thinks it's a dream, albeit a pretty realistic one. To test his equipment, he tries to use some magic. His primary class was supposed to be a paladin, with a secondary as a priest, so he shouldn't be able to use fire magic like a mage. However, he believes he can use all abilities, which makes him incredibly powerful. Being a true gamer, he wants to test his skills, but first, he needs to find some food. His attempt at teleportation fails, probably because he didn't think clearly about the destination. Instead, he moves using a skill called dimensional movement, which used to teleport him anywhere in the game, but in this world, it seems more like a short-distance spell. Arriving at a realistic-looking water source, he realizes his appearance is skull-like, the avatar he had chosen. This could frighten people, so he decides to wear his helmet all the time to avoid drawing attention. Upon reaching the city of Luvierte, he proves to be a good person, but when offered food, he declines due to lacking money. However, he's hungry and must find a way to pay for it. In a back alley, he encounters a hooded girl who turns out to be an elf, and he gets excited. He arrives at a mercenary guild where he asks for work to earn some money. The owner hesitates because Ark's appearance is that of a well-equipped knight who wouldn't need such work, but eventually, he agrees, after asking Ark to prove himself by completing a task, hunting down a creature and bringing back evidence of the kill. Ark has no trouble hunting down pigs and a fantasy creature that appears to be an orc. While he was delivering the proof of his success, he stumbles upon the group of thugs from earlier trying to abuse the two girls. Seeing the situation worsen, he intervenes despite being outnumbered and defeats all of them, even those who attempted to run away. The girls are safe, and to his surprise, one of them is Lauren du Luvierte, from the Luvierte family, just like the city's name from before, and the other is her assistant, Rita. They believe he's a knight in service to some king, but his character's background is that he's a cursed paladin seeking work to break the curse. Unable to tell them the truth, he tries to leave without further ado. Ark questions a bit whether he did the right thing in killing the thugs, but while the girls aren't looking, he loots them. As he was leaving, Lauren and Rita accompany him back to the city, and that's when he tells them his name. Returning to the guild, he receives a runic stone, which can turn into items and weapons, and most importantly, he gets his mercenary license. Wanting to avoid drawing attention and hide his face, he enjoys a feast in his room, not bad for his first day, and he embraces the idea of being in a fantasy world he wants to explore further. We are now introduced to these girls who live with their mother, who leaves every morning at dawn. Their father passed away, and he used to collect medicinal herbs, a job they want to continue, but they can't do it alone. So, they send a request for help to the mercenary guild. This is when Ark takes up the quest and heads to the village, trying not to draw too much attention, although with his armor, it's quite the opposite. Upon arriving at the girl's house, they get scared as they didn't expect a knight. The girl's name is Marka, and Ark tells her that he's there because he's interested in medicinal herbs. They set out to complete the quest, and the offer mentioned that there were wild boars with huge tusks, so he must protect her during the mission. Marka is in a hurry because she doesn't want her mother to find out what she's doing, so she asks Ark not to say anything. They venture deeper into the forest, but they must go even further. However, they need to be alert because something is approaching. They think it's a monster, but it turns out to be this tiny, flying squirrel. Ark tests his healing abilities and manages to cure the little creature's wound, making it fond of him, so he decides to give it a name. Fried tofu? No, he doesn't like that name, so he names it Ponta instead. Meanwhile, in the city, a man informs everyone that he encountered very strange wild boars, and it's better to avoid the forest. At that moment, Marka's mother returns to the village, and she is told about the dangers of the boars. After going deep into the forest and unknowingly falling about 20 meters, Marka reaches the tree she mentioned to Ark before. Everything could have gone well, except that a huge six-legged creature is chasing her. It's definitely not a wild boar, it looks more like a giant iguana or something. Ark comes to Marka's rescue. It's a giant basilisk, capable of spewing poisonous breath and turning its victims to stone with its claws. It's a monster powerful enough to give any normal player a hard time. The basilisk continues to attack, but Arc repels its strikes, and when it tries to use its petrifying ability, Arc's shield is enough to fend it off. But the games are over when Arc uses a high-level skill called Judgment, instantly defeating the giant iguana. Marka wants to tell the village about everything that happened so that they invite Arc to dinner and more, but he asks her to keep it a secret. The basilisk had a ring that disappears shortly after the fight. Arc theorizes that the boars that appeared earlier were running away from the iguana, which explains the connection between them. Well, it was one of the boars, because Arc hunts it down to take it back to the village. Marka's mother welcomes her home, relieved that nothing happened to her. Arc apologizes for taking Marka to the forest, and when the villagers ask him if he saw any giant monsters, he has to lie and say he didn't. After all this, Arc bids farewell to the village, and Marka's sister gives him a flower crown. Deep in the forest, a group of knights is shown facing a giant basilisk. Although they defeat it, they suffer heavy casualties. They also find the one Arc defeated and quickly deduce that a single person was responsible for it. Arc would like to continue staying unnoticed, but he is willing to take on more challenging tasks. Remember the elf from earlier? Of course, she will appear more. She is even on the cover, opening and ending. She talks about how the pact between elves and humans has been broken, and humans are encroaching on their lands, so she feels obligated to fight against this injustice. She encounters Arc again and attacks him without a word, unwilling to listen to any explanation. For now, we continue with Arc laughing like a maniac in a cave where he's taking down criminals as part of a job. He notices a couple of things. First, they have a lot of gold, and second, there are empty cages in the place. Then, we meet this guy, Triton, the Lord of Diento, who was responsible for sending the men to attack Lauren du Luvierte. They inform him that the assassination attempt was foiled by a passing mercenary, Arc. However, he is not only responsible for that, he also ordered the sending of the two giant iguanas that were in the forest before. These men follow orders from Prince Takares and want to harm Luvierte. However, Luvierte has the support of Prince Sek. While they are supposed to work for Luvierte, they show loyalty to Takares, so they must keep it a secret. And if you thought that attempting to assassinate Lauren and sending two giant iguanas into the forest was bad, you haven't heard the worst part. They are involved in human trafficking, with the help of Triton's son, Uldren. Now back to the elf. The moment Arc leaves the cave, she attacks him relentlessly, not willing to hear any explanation. Arc recognizes her, and she demands that he return the children he stole. Arc tries to explain, but it's not until she looks at Ponta that she stops. Ponta is actually a spiritual creature, a white-tailed fox, and it's rare for him to like elves, let alone humans, making it even more peculiar. The elf apologizes for attacking Arc and explains that the bandits there are hunting elves, which is why the cages were there, although they are now empty. The reason for this is that they sell elves on the black market. Arc offers his help to the elf, but she says she doesn't need it. However, Arc sees this as an opportunity to assist her and gets excited. Later, while eating, he realizes that she never told him her name, so it won't be easy to find her. The next day, he heads to a forest where there should be many elves. Later, they come across a group of depraved individuals kidnapping elves, and the one leading them is Uldren, the guy the first mentioned before. Demonstrating that he's worse than his father, Uldren starts torturing a little girl. Arc watches from afar and knows that the elf told him not to interfere, but he can't just stand by. Just as he is about to act, the elf appears again and comes to the rescue, showing great skill with her sword. The cowardly Uldren, seeing that she's defeating all his men, threatens to kill the girls if she doesn't let herself be captured. She has no choice but to comply, and that's when Arc intervenes and sends Uldren flying with a single blow instead of killing him. In a moment, they defeat all the bandits, and Arc frees the girls, who were wearing mana-devouring collars that prevent elves from using their spiritual magic, making it easy to capture them. Arc easily removes the collars with an anti-curse spell and heals the girls' wounds. The elf summons a bird, a spiritual creature capable of receiving a message, remembering it, and passing it on to another person. A gossiping bird, it's called, or whispering bird, it's the same. A real life, a little bird told me, situation. The girls are taken to safety, and the elf, whose name is Ariane Maple, an elven warrior, is surprised by Arc's abilities. Arc introduces himself as a simple traveling mercenary. The bird returns with a message for Ariane that there are still more elves to be rescued. Before, Ariane didn't want his help, but now she does, so she wants to hire Arc as a mercenary. Despite the possible discomfort of her companions, Ariane trusts Arc after everything that happened, so she asks for his help to save her people, and they make a deal. It's worth mentioning that Arc is a great guy. He greets you in every chapter, so polite he is. Although he wanted a low-profile life, his encounter with Ariane might make him reconsider some things. Ariane is surprised by Ark's teleportation ability. They go to the city, where they will meet another elven companion, Donka. Ark is excited to meet him but is surprised to see that he looks so serious. As expected, Donka doesn't seem to trust easily. They go to eat somewhere else, and Ark refrains from doing so because he doesn't want to reveal his face and risk being attacked. Donka has the same surname as Ariane, but they aren't siblings or related. It's just that they both come from Maple City, from a large forest called Canada. Yes. Donka completely ignores Ark's questions and talks extensively about the food at the place. He refers to Ark as Thing. Ariane explains that she hired Ark to help them with the rescue mission and that his teleportation ability would be useful. Donka also knows Ponta and feels a little more confident seeing a spiritual creature with him. The house they are in is where the elves are being held captive, so they plan to go early in the morning when there are fewer people around. With some free time, Ark decides to leave. Ariane explains to Donka why she trusts Ark. With the payment from the bandits, Ark decides to use his earnings to try the food that Donka was talking about. He does so in an alley with windows nearby where he can be seen by anyone, but don't worry, no one sees him. In the early morning, the plan is set in motion, unaware that a girl is secretly following them. The mission is not only to rescue the elves but also to deal with the bandits. Ark teleports them to the window through which they will enter. Ariane tries to go in, but she can't fit for two big reasons, so Ark and Donka look away, and then they appear inside, demonstrating that Ark could have done that from the beginning. As they search the rooms, they find dead bandits, and it seems recent. They decide to split up to continue searching. Ark finds more dead men, and that's when he's attacked by the girl who was following them. Ark quickly recognizes her as a ninja, one with animal-like ears. She wonders how he knew she was a ninja, but it seems pretty obvious. Seeing Ponta, the ninja hesitates to think that he is there for evil purposes, so she realizes that he's there to free the captive elves. However, she has another reason for being there. She gives Ark some papers, another item, and before leaving, she warns him that in Triton's palace, the Lord of Diento, there are 2 more elves being held captive. Then, she leaves. Ark examines the papers and finds them to be slave purchase contracts, irrefutable evidence that Triton is behind all this. Ark informs them about the elves they found and the other 2 in the palace, but he can't tell them about the ninja because it would complicate things. So, he says he interrogated some bandits to get the information. They can't reach the basement without drawing attention, so Ariane deals with the bandits by burning them with her sword. Moments later, everyone reaches the basement and finally manages to rescue the elves. They then leave using Ark's teleportation. These rescued elves also had the collars from before, so Ark removes them. With the elves safe, Donka will take them back to the forest while Ariane and Ark take care of rescuing the others. They manage to infiltrate easily without drawing too much attention. Well, they infiltrate. The ninja from before is not alone. She is accompanied by this man and is sure she will see Ark again. Meanwhile, inside the palace, Triton has trapped 2 more elves, while the injured Uldren is there, alone, watching. Ark and Ariane enter the palace, and somehow no one noticed Ark here, even though his armor is completely different from the others. They arrive just in time and burst into Triton's room. Ariane kicks him where it hurts, and while Ark tries to prevent Uldren from escaping, he notices a secret room. So, while Ariane beats up Triton along with the other 2 elves and takes care of the soldiers, Ark checks out the hidden room. And what luck, in that room, there was a lot of gold, and Ark starts looting it all. But to save face, he claims that he is taking it to disrupt the economy and stop the purchase of elves. Suddenly, explosions start happening in the palace. After leaving the palace, Ark thinks that the ninja from before is responsible for the explosions. Ariane pays Ark, but instead of refusing the payment, he accepts it, even though he has all that gold now. Ariane wants him to continue accompanying her, this time to the land of the elves, something Ark clearly wouldn't refuse. He would have to meet with the elder there and talk to him to be accepted, which would mean showing his face at least. Ark opens up to Ariane and tells her that she might want to kill him when she sees what's behind his helmet, but she assures him that she won't judge him, and he reveals his face, and she accepts him without any problem. Ark explains that even he doesn't know how this happened, he just appeared in this world with his character's body, but he won't tell her that, as it would only confuse her more. Ariane accepts him, and she also tells him that the elder might know of a way to break the curse, so now he's technically traveling to break the curse he made up for his character's story. Now we move to Olav, the capital of the kingdom of Rodan, where King Carlin talks to his children about the situation with Triton. Sect mentions that they suspect the elves were responsible, as Triton captured elves and sold them. Princess Yuriarna has her doubts, while Dakares, who we know is behind all this, denies all the rumors, as there is no evidence. King Carlin decides that it's best to investigate the rumors and not accuse without evidence, but watch out for sect. Look at that smile, he knows things. Uriarna tries to calm the situation, as if the rumors were true, it would create tensions not only with the elves but also with other nations, so they will try to talk to the elves, and Uriarna is sent for that. Meanwhile, Ark and Ariane are on their way to the land of the elves, but it's quite far, so they camp from time to time, and Ariane has fun with Ponta. Princess Uriarna is sure that Dakares is involved in the elf trafficking, and it's not a lie. After a long journey, Ark and Ariane arrive at the land of the elves, the elven settlement of Lalatoya. The doors open immediately, but Ark must stay there while Ariane talks to the elder. She stays for a while, walking around, playing with Ponta, and finally, Ariane returns. They will allow him to enter. They head to that huge tree, and they are welcomed by Ariane's parents, Dylan, the elder she mentioned, and Glennis. They might look young, but in reality, they are over 240 years old. Dylan didn't expect them to directly attack the palace, but Ark explains the situation, and he understands. However, he must explain the situation to the elders of the other villages and will take the slave contracts as evidence. It's time for dinner, and Ark is hesitant about taking off his helmet, but it's not an issue because Ariane already talked to her parents about it, and they have no problem. Here, it's mentioned that for some reason, he thought the only part of his body that was skeletal was his head, but no, his entire body is. The next morning, Dylan and Ariane go to see the other elders in Maple, while Glennis accompanies Ark around the village to show him around. The elves in the village are not very pleased to have a human there, but it's not a big deal because he meets the ones he rescued earlier. Glennis unexpectedly asks for something, a fight with Ark for training. During the elders' council meeting, they discuss how they went overboard with the palace situation, but they started it in the first place. The decision they make is to try to keep what happened hidden to avoid a war, and in the meantime, continue the rescue missions to observe Rodin's reaction. As for these two, Glennis tells Ark not to worry. After all, she was the one who trained her daughter, and it wasn't a lie. She moves quite fast, giving Ark no time to react, which he takes as a great opportunity to learn how to use the sword, although he could have learned how to be a punching bag because he couldn't do anything but take hits. Dylan tells Ariane that not only will they continue with the rescues, but they will also officially hire Ark. There, Ariane reunites with her sister Even, who is about to get married, but the truth is we couldn't care less about that. Even is proud of her sister as she knows about the rescues, and she starts hinting that Ariane should find someone to marry. I won't suggest candidates, but I propose Ark. And Ark, well, just like a punching bag, he finishes the training with Glennis. It's true that he has broken abilities, but he still has much to learn. 6 episodes have passed, and only now I wonder how he manages to eat as a skeleton. Where does the food go? He never gets full. No wonder he eats all the time. Taking a bath becomes an awkward situation with Ariane, but what makes it more uncomfortable is that they have to eat at the same table moments later. Dylan tells Ark that they need to investigate the names on the contracts to continue with the rescue mission. He also informs Ark about their decision to officially hire him to work with Ariane, even though they can't pay him much. But hey, what does it matter when he has all that money? Putting that aside, Dylan tells Ark that he might be able to lift his curse at a spring in Lord Crown. What is Lord Crown? It's a type of tree where a great dragon usually lives. In theory, it should work to break his curse, but the dragon protects the place. However, there is a possibility that if an elf requests to go there, they might be granted permission to enter without trouble. Remember that the curse was something Ark made up for his game character, but having said this, he accepts the information they gave him and also agrees to work with Ariane. At night, before sleeping, Ark starts to wonder if he is really cursed. So, he decides to try something crazy, using one of the spells he knows, the Anti-Maldición, Anti-Curse, spell. To everyone's surprise, he manages to retrieve his hand, well, more or less, as the effect immediately wears off. He tries again and again, but the result is the same. However, now he has some certainty that the spring might give him a body. They now head to Olav, the capital of the Kingdom of Rodin, where they will search for those involved in the contract. On the way, Ark is chased by these giant insects. Later, Ariane tells him that some people eat those insects. Looking at the map, the safest way to get to Olav is to avoid this forest, but Ariane proposes crossing it to get there faster. There, a woman appears and warns them that the forest is full of bewitched wolves, which are not common and have killed several people. However, they ignore the warning and go there anyway. Meanwhile, in Olav, the princess gets ready with her assistant to ride in a carriage, and if you think something will go wrong here, well, you're right, but we still need to wait for that. In the forest, Ariane mentions that the tails of the bewitched wolves are used to make the perfect fabric for a wedding veil, so she now wants one for her sister. Moments later, the wolves start appearing, but some of them simply vanish because they are mirages. These wolves attack in groups and create illusions to confuse their prey. The reason they are considered dangerous is that the pack leader is very intelligent. One by one, the wolves arrive, and Ariane shows that she can defend herself. Then, Ark finds the leader and tries to attack him. He realizes that the leader has the same ring as the basilisk before, so he removes it. Surprisingly, at that moment, the wolves stop being aggressive towards them and continue on their way. Clearly, the rings have something to do with it, but Ariane takes the opportunity to collect some wolf tails. Meanwhile, the princess and her assistant in their carriage are not so lucky, as they are ambushed and mercilessly killed. These guys were hired by someone and want to make the incident look like it was an attack by bandits. One of them gives the leader a collar as a memento of the princess. At that moment, Ponta appears, and therefore Ark, who finds the bodies of the princess and her guards. However, he has the idea to try to heal or revive her in some way, though he is not entirely sure how to do it. The wolves from before also arrive at the scene and attack the group of mercenaries, and now they are allies, as they end up finishing off most of them, and some flee. As there is no one around, Ark tries anyway. The spell to revive only works if the person hasn't suffered much damage or hasn't been dead for long, so it works on Princess Uriarna, her assistant, and some guards, but not all of them, as one of them doesn't make it. When she wakes up, the princess catches a glimpse of Ark and thinks he is an angel. After regaining consciousness, they realize that everything really happened, and it wasn't just a dream, but Uriarna is convinced that it's a miracle from God, and she informs her guards, and they will continue on their way. Ark thinks that perhaps reviving her wasn't a good idea, as doing it with a princess could turn it into a historical event. He returns to Ariane and doesn't tell her anything about what happened. As for her, she has the wolf tails ready. Finally, they arrive in Olav, where a little later, they encounter this girl beating up those guys. And we already know this girl. She is none other than the animal-eared ninja from before. This girl travels to rescue her kind who are kidnapped by humans, and she met Ark on one of these journeys. She says that all races have a distinct scent, but Ark's scent is completely different from that of humans and others, and it's something she can't explain. Anyway, they meet again, and Ark has no choice but to explain to Ariane that she was the one who gave him the contracts that night. She is one of the 6 ninjas of the Jinshin clan. However, they go to another place to talk. Ark explains something about ninja kanjis that I didn't really understand. After waiting for so long, they introduce themselves to her. Her name is Chion. The first thing she does is ask Ark how he realized he was a ninja back then. Ark can't come up with any other answer than it was quite obvious. Chion believed that the term ninja was something known only within her clan. She also mentions that it's likely that Ark comes from the same land as their founder, a man who lived 600 years ago and is now a legend. Ark suspects that he might be some other human like him who appeared in that world, created a ninja clan, and became a legend. Chion gets straight to the point and asks Ark to help her rescue her fellow ninjas. Since they treat the elves this way, they must treat the beastmen even worse. As a reward for helping her, Chion promises to reveal the location of the ones mentioned in the contract. Ark refuses because he is contracted by Ariane, but deep down, he wants to do something for her. So, he talks to Ariane, who recognizes that just like her, Chion is a girl who grew up being trained to be strong and rescue her companions. Seeing so many similarities between them, Ariane understands her situation perfectly and agrees to help her. Meanwhile, the mastermind behind all the beasts controlled by rings, Dakares, is informed that his latest ploy, the controlled wolves, have been released. He was also behind the assassination attempt of Princess Uriarna. In fact, they are still looking for her because they know she survived. Moreover, they inform him that both the elves and the beast people are trying to ruin the contract. This useless guy starts to fear for his life after all he has been doing. So, his assistant tells him to hide in a secret place and stay there for a while. Oh, and the assistant has the collar they had taken from Uriarna as proof of her death. Ark asks Chion to tell him more about her founder. He was not a beastman, he was a human named Hanzo, who used to spy for the Revlon Empire. While doing that, he gave refuge to the beastmen who suffered from the injustices of the empire. These were the beginnings of the Jinshin clan. With this, Ark is sure that this Hanzo was like him and appeared in that world, creating a ninja clan and becoming a legend. Chiom takes them to the largest slave market in the city, where they plan to attack. And indeed, inside this place, there are many beastmen, some already dead. The plan is to cause a commotion by attacking and then retreat. This place is just bait. They will actually launch several attacks at the same time on other slave markets to free many people, but they won't be able to save everyone. However, they hope that with the help of Ark and Ariane, they can save many. Ark tells Chiome about his abilities, and she immediately recognizes that he has spatial temporal abilities, just like the founder Hanzo. With this teleportation magic, they can reduce casualties. Having said this, the attack will take place at night. How do they prepare for it? By eating, of course. Remember that Ariane said they eat those insects from before? Well, she gives Ark a dish of them. After that, they get ready to go, so Ark gets the most ridiculous mask you can imagine to go unnoticed. Even Ponta doesn't like how he looks. Then, Chiome arrives accompanied by her companion Gomon. Here Ark talks about ninja hierarchies or something, but they don't mention Naruto, so it's not true. Gomon and Ark demonstrate their strength, and you might think they are fighting because they hate each other, but it's their way of introducing themselves. With all the teams ready, the time has come. Ark and Gomon head straight for the guards to cause a commotion while they enter. Gomon has many techniques, like turning his body into iron, but Ark is not far behind, using magic to call attention, just like a master earthbender raising rocks and throwing them. The plan goes well. The first phase was to attract attention, and they are succeeding. However, Ark realizes that Gomon's abilities and his own might complement each other. Dakares is informed about the disturbances, so he asks to send more men. Chiome and Ariane manage to get inside. Chiome demonstrates her ninja skills, and Ariane does not lag behind. They manage to free a lot of beastmen, so they meet up with Ark and Gomon to inform them that only the prisoners on the other side of the fortress are left. They go there, while Gomon stays behind to buy them some time. In that place, they rescue many, but they also find the cell where all the dead beastmen are, where they kept the injured and sick. When they gather everyone, Ark uses his teleportation to get them all out of there. Then, he decides to go back to help Gomon. Moments later, they both join the group, bringing with them the bodies of the dead beastmen, so Ariane can use a spell to let their souls rest in peace. At least, that's what it looks like when you see those forms ascending to the sky. Back with Dakares, brace yourself for what's coming because he is betrayed by his assistant and killed. This guy is actually collaborating with his brother Sect and is the one behind the whole plot to assassinate Yuriarna. Sect plans to announce that Dakares was the one who planned the assassination of Yuriarna. But hold on, because if you think Sect is the one behind all this, you're wrong. In reality, the one controlling everything is another person, but we still have some way to go to get there. Meanwhile, Ark and Company's mission was a success. After everything is done, they will part ways. Chiome and Gomon will go to a hidden village in the mountains, but not before giving Ark the information she promised at the beginning. The names that appear in the contract took the elves to the Holy Empire of Revlon. Meanwhile, Yuriarna arrives at the Grand Duchy of Limbold, where she would clarify the whole issue with the elves to prevent a war. There, she meets her sister, who was informed that Dakares had killed Yuriarna. Shortly after, the princess learns about all the disturbances in Olav and Dakares' death, leaving Sect as the sole heir. Yuriarna is certain that Dakares wasn't behind the attack she received. Instead, she believes that Sect is responsible. Since they mentioned the Holy Empire of Revlon, Ariane becomes quite serious. Still, they will head there. And remember when I told you that the one responsible for controlling everything was not Dakares or Sect? Well, the one behind it all is Emperor Domitianus Revlon, who is already aware of Dakares' death but wrongly believes that the princess is dead too. Furthermore, this guy is the one who supplied Dakares with the rings to control the beasts. On their way to the Holy Empire of Revlon, they encounter a group of dragons called Gyverns. With so many, the gossip bird cannot fly, leaving them without communication. So, Ark takes matters into his own hands to clear the area. He uses a spell to summon lightning all around, scaring off the Gyverns but also electrocuting Ariane and Ponta. While this happens, an elf watches everything from above. While discussing the shortest route to the Empire to get there quickly, Ark can't help but ask Ariane why she was so serious after Chiome gave them the information. She is a bit scared about what might happen. They are interrupted by the elf from earlier, named Karsi, who doesn't bother to hide. However, the people there get along well with him, and he knows everyone in the city since he's been living there for about 10 years. Karsi makes a point that there are places where elves and humans coexist, suggesting they might get along. Ariane isn't entirely convinced, and it's understandable given all she has been through. Karsi earns a living by studying monsters, but there's one that's been problematic. He wants Ark and Ariane to help him, and in return, he'll give them a map of the Holy Empire of Revlon and copies of all his studies. This excites Ark a lot, and he insists to Ariane that they should help. Deal made. They will go the next day. At night, Ark and Ariane drink a little, and she becomes a bit affectionate. Well, quite a bit, to the point where the lady downstairs can hear everything. The next morning, they are teased about the commotion they made the previous night. Finally, they meet up with Karsi, who is also aware of the scandal from the previous night, as the whole town heard about it. Anyway, they set out to find the creature with a guy who is a friend of Karsi. The hangover is affecting Ariane, and as if that's not enough, they have goblin corpses they'll use as bait. They are trying to capture a sandworm. Karsi is looking for one that is about 4 or 5 meters long, resting underground during the day and coming out to eat corpses at night, weak against fire. The idea is just to capture it, so they need to restrain themselves. Also, it tends to be close to the Gyverns, which is why they didn't find the worm the last time. Everything gets complicated when the guy's carriage is no longer there, and it gets worse when the sandworm suddenly appears, not measuring 4 or 5 meters but around 30. Ariane tries to save the guy, but the worm isn't weak against fire either. It's the opposite of what Karsi thought. However, Ark is there to save the day. He manages to pull the worm out of the ground and tosses it into the earth, not only incapacitating it but also removing its ring because, yes, it also had one, like the other beasts. This was enough to capture the worm, so it's done. Karsi gives them the payment, and before leaving, he tells Ariane that he likes humans, even admitting that he used to be a bit like her. He also mentions that the Lord of Lambert married an elf, and it wasn't because she was forced. In fact, she was going to be sold as a slave, and he saved her, and that's where it all began. They have the initiative to improve relations between elves and humans. Ark and Ariane continue their journey to the Holy Empire of Revlon. Now, we meet this very unpleasant guy, Fumba, who has the power to control beasts and is also the creator of the rings they use for that control. This guy works for Domitianus, and he shows the kind of person he is by throwing a girl into a pit where a huge creature he's controlling devours her with 5 rings. Finally, they arrive at a border city, which means they are already in the Empire of Revlon. It's supposed that the kidnapped elves are in that city, but it seems very guarded, so they must be careful. They decide to split up to gather information and reunite later. A little later, all Ark has found out is that strange sounds are heard at night in a certain fortress to the east, monsters appear at the borders, and people disappear. Despite the number of guards, it's a pretty unsafe place. However, he didn't find out anything about the kidnapped elves. When he is about to meet with Ariane, Ark comes across some guys bothering a woman, and he clearly intervenes. The woman thanks him with a hug, and at that moment, Ariane appears, feeling jealous about how she found them earlier. But I mean, really jealous. She asks the girl to leave and all. But it doesn't end there, because after her fit of jealousy, Ariane remains irritable for a while. This Fumba guy makes this monster eat those 3 guys who were bothering the girl before. Ariane tells Ark that some elves were taken to that fortress 4 months ago. With so much time passed, Ark fears the worst, but Ariane refuses to believe it. Ark is surprised at how Ariane managed to get the information, and it turns out that despite her jealousy, she mentions that someone helped her, but she won't say who because she's still mad at Ark. They venture into the fortress until they reach a secret door that leads to what appears to be a prison with an unpleasant smell and hair everywhere. Passing through another door, they find themselves in the place where Fumba hides. Upon seeing Ariane, something strange happens, and she starts following his orders. Not even an anti-curse spell can bring Ariane back to consciousness. Meanwhile, she has dreams about her sister even. After struggling for a while, Ark doesn't understand why nothing is working. Then he realizes something, and Ponta goes on the attack, removing some ugly thing from Ariane that he doesn't know what it is, but somehow it was controlling her. Although no longer under control, she remains unconscious. Fumba introduces himself, tells Ark that he controls monsters, and so on. Ark looks at the rings and everything starts making sense to him. But let's stop talking because Ark is furious when he hears Fumba say that the elves are no longer there. He easily defeats the giant tiger, but it doesn't end there because Fumba summons his entire arsenal and attacks Ark. Ark easily defeats them all, but one escapes and goes after Ariane. But don't worry, salvation arrives as Chiome appears to save her, accompanied by Gomen and more of her comrades. Chiome was the one who gave Ariane the information, and they were supposed to meet her, but since Ariane didn't say anything because of her jealousy, they hadn't been informed. Defeating all the monsters causes Fumba's strongest creature to emerge. They escape from the fortress and watch as it collapses, revealing a 5-headed figure coming out of it, the most powerful water magic creature, a Hydra. That's right, the nation-destroying creature is under Fumba's control, with 5 rings, 1 for each head. The Hydra attacks our group and hits them hard. But before going further, let's talk a little about this trash. He belonged to a tribe of people who controlled monsters, but his ego got the best of him, and he was expelled since the people there were peaceful. So, he decided to seek revenge and work for Domitianus. He controls the Hydra and directs it straight to the city. Meanwhile, our group remains unharmed. Ark managed to minimize the impact of the attack. On the other hand, Ariane is very upset, not only because she was controlled, but also because while under control, she heard everything, including Fumba saying they killed the elves. Ariane has an idea. They can take advantage of Fumba's belief that they are dead after the attack. However, Ark notices that the Hydra is heading straight for the city, so he wants to go and confront it. Domitianus is informed that everything is going according to plan. They want to destabilize the other countries to invade them later. As the Hydra is about to attack the city, Ark intervenes with an attack that doesn't do much, but he keeps attacking again and again, with little success. Fumba is surprised that Ark is still alive, and he will be even more surprised when Ark later defeats the Hydra. The battle continues, and Ark decides to use the high-class knight technique, managing to cut off more heads of the Hydra, but it's incredibly resilient and starts regenerating instantly. Ark decides to use a technique he hasn't tried yet. He summons Ifrit, the infernal demon, a creature as big as the Hydra. Meanwhile, Ariane and Chiome approach Fumba, who looks desperate as Ark summoned that creature. Ariane and Chiome reach Fumba, and instead of killing him immediately, they start talking a lot. Fumba tries to use the ugly thing again to control Ariane, but not only does it not work, Chiome attacks him from behind, damaging the marks he uses to control the creatures, causing him to lose complete control of the Hydra. But don't worry, if Ark summoned that creature and the opening theme starts playing, the Hydra is done for. Ariane kills Fumba by burning him, while Ark continues attacking the Hydra, this time more effectively. He even lifts it with his own strength so Ifrit can burn it with a powerful attack. It's easy. Where's the challenge with that Hydra? By the time it's all over, they gather, and Ariane asks Ark about the creature. He responds that it's just a temporary summon that will disappear soon. On the other hand, Princess Uriarna manages to talk to one of the elder elves and tells him everything. In summary, Uriarna wants their support to become the heir to the throne, as Sect seeks to oppress other races. Uriarna also tells the elf about the one she married, the Lord of Lambert, and that it's time for elves and humans to coexist. Due to this, Ariane is out of work. She no longer needs to look for more elves because Rodin will apparently take care of it. Also, she thinks about what Karsi told her earlier, that it might be possible for elves and humans to coexist. Everything is changing so fast. Meanwhile, Sect finds out much later that Uriarna is still alive, but he doesn't want that to frustrate his plans. On the other hand, Uriarna still believes that the time she died, she was saved by an angel. Domitianus is informed that the Hydra is dead and more, but he doesn't care much. Although they no longer have Fumba working for them, they have managed to replicate the rings to control monsters. Domitianus wants to know who defeated the Hydra, despite everything. With the mission completed, Ark wants to continue his adventures quietly, and, without drawing attention, even though we all know that's not possible. He also reveals his face to Chiome, who is frightened. Ariane reminds Ark that they have to go to Lord Crown, to the spring that can release any curse. The adventure that began solo ended with many friends. Even though Ark still doesn't know why he came to that world, he doesn't care because he wants to continue enjoying his adventures there. And that's how the first season of this anime ends. If you've reached this part of the video, let me tell you that you've been one of the few people to make it this far. So comment the word skeleton in the comments. Remember to subscribe to not miss any videos. With that said, see you in the next video.